Hey, welcome back. So U.S. taxpayers are used to seeing their money go into government projects, and the likelihood of them knowing exactly where their money goes, well, slim to none, right? 2020, however, like just about everything else in 2020, was different. U.S. taxpayers saw billions and billions of their taxpayer dollars go to companies like Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and many others, actually, some of whom weren't able to come up with any vaccines. But the reason they gave them that money was to find a vaccine for COVID-19. Because of those billions of dollars that you gave to those companies for research and development, for manufacturing, for distribution, those companies were able to come up with the vaccines which they are now making bank on. Billions of dollars. You gave them the money, they're making all the money. Is that fair? Why should a private company keep all of the profits from a taxpayer-funded project? It's a good question, huh? Time to ask it. Here's NRS correspondent Farron Franzek. She's been looking into this for us. Start with Moderna, for example. How much money is Moderna making off of this all this money that you and I gave them?
Off of the people's vaccine, as they're calling it? All right. Yeah. $30 billion, and we're going to break it all down here for you. So they were given $955 million from the biomedical advanced research, $1.5 billion from the federal government. They were given more money to make sure that there was 100 million doses by December 2020. Did we see it? No. 1 million from Dolly Parton. She gave it to Vanderbilt, who's working with Moderna for this.
I still can't get over that.
Yeah, Dolly Parton of all people.
It's fine. People wanted to give them money, and they just took it and put it in their pocket.
Exactly. Right. $2.5 billion they're given, $30 billion in revenue. But people are asking, okay, so then how are they making this money? Well, Rick, when you have the highest, the most expensive vaccine on the market, check this out compared to other countries. Moderna, highest $37 compared to Johnson & Johnson, even though that's the U.S. They're
That's what it costs for a vial of this stuff?
Yeah, but Sputnik V, $10. Yeah. And that was, and most of the companies in Europe were all funded by nonprofits. So it's like, here were the government giving all their money.
We're going to give you all the money so you can come up with a vaccine, and then on top of that, they're going to screw us by charging the most for the vaccine. Right. That they never had to pay a penny to come up with.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem right.
It doesn't, but how they're getting away with this is the 1980 bill, the Bayh-Dole bill. It's named after those two senators, Birch Bayh and Bob Dole. It basically says if a private company gets federal funding, if it invents something, that company then gets ownership or the patent over it. So in 1980, though, you got to look back. 5% of the government-owned inventions were put into production by private companies. It's a huge patent giveaway, but unfortunately, this was meant to drive innovation back in 1980. However, we're seeing the effects real time with Moderna. In 2018 alone, they gave $100 billion to fund research at the NIH. 210 drugs were approved that year. All of those patents went to those drug companies. And that was $100 billion of our dollars.
Whatever happened to standing up on your own 2 feet and accomplishing something and being able to stand up for it? Daniel McAdams is a good guy to ask. He's with the Ron Paul Institute. We're always having these types of discussions about things like this, where how much should the government be involved? And when the government is involved, do we just let companies or whoever walk away with our money? I mean, this is hard-earned tax money that, you know, Dan and you and me literally worked hard for. Daniel McAdams joins us now from the Ron Paul Institute. Daniel, where do you weigh in on this?
You know, the problem, Rick, you know, and everyone has been terrified of this virus, and a lot of people should be terrified of it. A lot of people do get sick and die. But the problem is when fear governs people's behavior, they tend to turn to government and are willing to give up whatever it is, their freedom, their liberty, their money, asking the government to keep them safe. But the government isn't very good at keeping you safe. The government is very good at jumping into bed with so-called private companies and making a deal. But the government also acts like a person with a gun. He puts a gun up to our head and takes our money and tells us what to do. We didn't have a say in what was happening with this. All we knew is that this money was going to them. And Rick, it's not very different from what we see with, for example, the military-industrial complex, which privatizes the profits and socializes the loss, i.e., we pick up the tab. And so it really is a sort of a tip of the iceberg to a deeper problem you have when you have big pharma, big defense in bed with government.
Yeah, and you know, this is the same thing that happens with subsidies, for example. Companies like Monsanto like, the last thing they need is for me as a taxpayer to go in and give them more money on top of the money they already make. But this happens all the time. And one wonders at what point we have a right to say to these companies, hey, the gig is up. You need to give some of that back. Can we tax them? Is there any way we can do that? Probably not, right, Dan? Because I imagine they're much more powerful than even we are, unless somehow collectively we do something.
Well, don't worry, Rick. Big Pharma gives a lot of it back, but it gives it back in a different way. It gives it back in the form of campaign contributions to politicians. It gives it back to big media, all those wonderful media outlets and multiple outlets. If you watch TV, which I don't, other than, of course, RT America, but if you watch TV, especially at the time of day when older folks are watching, it is a pornography of big pharma ads. You got this problem, try this pill, do this. So they do give back. They just don't give back to those of us who foot the bill either directly or through the inflation that's coming after the expenditure of several trillions of dollars.
This conversation that we're having right now makes me hearken back to all the times I've heard politicians, especially Republicans, by the way, say, well, you know, that's communism and we have socialism that's on the way. And if you vote for a Democrat, you're going to get socialism. What the hell do we have now? What's more socialist than the government taking billions of my dollars and giving them to some company?
They love socialism. Both parties love socialism. That's why both parties hate people that are outside. That's why they hated Donald Trump. Not that he was not a socialist, but he was not their kind of socialist. Yeah. But the problem with this, Rick, above all, is that it distorts the market. When the government picks winners and losers, you don't necessarily get the best profit. You get the best connected company, the one who makes the most campaign contributions. Ultimately, you know, we who like the free market believe that individuals should decide. They should vote with their taxpayer, with their dollars that they earn in the free market, rather than through their politicians who more often than not are on the make.
That's awesome, Dan. You're right on point, my friend, and thank you so much. Daniel McAdams with the McAdams, I just Cubanized him or something. Daniel McAdams with the Ron Paul Institute. Always a pleasure, Dan. Appreciate it.